Alright.
So, just this afternoon, saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I really enjoyed. Of course, why wouldn't I like the first one. I like these Marvel movies in general, so was predisposed to like it. In my opinion, the movie itself was about 8 out of 10 stars. Like, it wasn't perfect, but I think it had perfect moments. There were moments in the film that were just kind of pure genius, and you got this right from the beginning. The scene where they have to fight the space monster, and of course they're always arguing with each other, right? So they're arguing over the music. Quill wants it on. Drax thinks it's not important, and then Groot gets the music connected, and I forget what the song was. But like the whole movie is like a 1970s soundtrack, just like the first one was. So Groot's kind of dancing around where they have the credits, and while they have the credits going and Groot's dancing around, you see like in the background that this big monster is kind of beating up his teammates. But like that's all kind of in the background, and then one of them will kind of fly across the screen, or like fall right in front of Groot or something while he's dancing around. It occurs to me that as I'm describing this, I'm probably making it sound pretty stupid, but it was just, if you see it, or if you have seen it already, I thought that was just a genius scene in terms of like creating like this bizarre tone, a kind of a humorous tone with meshing in with the action, meshing in with the soundtrack. And I think the better parts of the movie are all like that, where they kind of get the mix just right of like the humor mixed with this bizarre, mixed with this 70s soundtrack, which is part of the Guardians of the Galaxy now, since they decided to go in that direction. And yeah, when everything is clicking, it's just brilliant. Now, it does not maintain that level of brilliance all the way through. There are a lot of jokes in this movie. Everybody's making quips, so the jokes are flying kind of fast and furious, as it were. And some of them, a lot of them are actually pretty funny, and some of them are just really groaners. Where you're like, ugh. I can't believe that made it through production, or I can't believe that didn't get cut in rehearsal or something. Like, I don't know, like maybe I'm not the target audience. Maybe the target audience is like 11 years old. And, but for me, I thought a lot of these jokes just didn't work. Some of these jokes just didn't work. Most of them were pretty funny. And of course, when it was funny, it was good. Like at their best, and again, the jokes didn't work all the way through, but at its best, kind of mimicked like what did it mimic? Actually, I can't think of a comparison right now. I know they're not the first show to do this, but the kind of serious situation where people are arguing about stupid things and ignoring the serious situation that's right on top of them. I'm blanking on other examples. I know they're not the first movie to do this. I'll probably think of all the other examples once I start off the camera. Anyways, at its best, they're doing that humor quite well. The action scenes are good. I mean, they're always good in these Marvel movies. It gets a bit, I don't know. I think somebody once described the Marvel movies as things crashing into other things. It does get a bit like that, where it's just a whole bunch of kind of things crashing into each other and flying around. But it's good. So my complaint, and this I think has to do with all of the Marvel movies, really, almost all of them, is that you're watching these movies and the things that they put the human body through, you're like, okay, like he would have been dead like 10 minutes ago, and he's still kind of getting whacked around by the spacecraft and surviving explosions and everything like this. And like the people who write this movies must have just like no idea about human physiology, or just I don't know what's going on. I mean, I think there's a couple things going on. Maybe there's this phenomenon that every generation of film audiences has to take the adrenaline up a notch, because what you grew up watching on the TV when you were 5 doesn't thrill you anymore when you're 15. So like the 1930s movies seem really boring to us now because there's no adrenaline. Like they have to just, every generation needs more thrills on the screen because you get used to what's come before us. And so we may just be to this point now where audiences just can't handle normal action. It's got to be super action where they're getting exploded 6 times and run over by a car or something. I mean, I think that's part of it. Also, CGI allows them to do stuff that they could never have done when I was a kid. They could do it when I was a kid in a cartoon. You know, so you could have like, you know, these characters in a cartoon get blown up 7 times or kind of fall down the mountain and still live and stuff like that. But you had a hard time doing this in live action in a movie. Now because of CGI, the line between live action and cartoons is a lot more blurred. So like, you know, you had this, I think the most egregious example maybe was a character of Drax. And he jumps out of the spaceship and he's kind of connected to it by a tether. And then they crash land, and so he's getting dragged behind the spaceship as it crash lands and kind of bouncing off all the trees from this tether. And then the tether breaks, and then Gamora's kind of hanging on to the tether, and I'm like, all right, well, first of all, like, he should have been dead a long time ago. And like, she should have had her arms ripped off of the socket and stuff like that. Now, I know what the obvious out is. The obvious out is they're not humans. They're aliens. But, you know, first of all, the humans as well survive some stuff they shouldn't survive in these Marvel movies. I'm just using that as an example. Second of all, they're portrayed in the movie as if they're vulnerable. So these kind of scenes where they're all of a sudden invulnerable. And thirdly, I think somebody with science will back me up on this, maybe, like the humanoid body structure and just has inherent limitations. If you're going to have something that's moved by muscles and bones and a central nervous system, I shouldn't be bringing this logic to a comic book movie, but they're pushing things just a little bit too far in some of this, and it takes me right out of the movie. Because I'll be enjoying a scene, I'm like, all right, now this is ridiculous. Now this is just purely a cartoon. It's a minor quibble. Everything I have to say really is basically minor quibbles. I really enjoyed this movie for the most part. I enjoyed this movie. Flat out enjoyed it. Anything is just a minor quibble. Well, I'm divesting my soul of all the minor quibbles I have with this movie. The other thing I have a problem with, maybe overdose of sentimentality. Like, I guess everyone looks at this different, but to my mind, if I go to a science fiction, action, adventure, escapist movie like this, I'm not going there to have a good cry. Like, you know, if I want to like feel sad or have a good cry or something, like I'll go to a different movie. So I don't like the injection of too much sentimentality into my escapist science fiction action movies. And that was a criticism I had of the first movie. And this movie does it even more. But I think in this movie they can get away with it, because at this point we've gotten to know these characters. We've seen them through kind of 2 movies now. We've grown affectionate for them. We care about them. We're invested in them. So you can start to get away with that stuff in the second movie. And I mean, to put it in film criticism terms, the sentimentality is earned at this point. The audience is invested, and that investment is paying off. That last scene, I think maybe they milked it just a little bit too much. Like maybe it went on a couple beats too long with that funeral scene. Spoilers. Yeah, for the most part, I think it played better in the second movie than it did in the first movie. The soundtrack, right. I've always been a big oldies fan, so I love the retro soundtrack that's in these movies. And they do a good job of having it complement the scene nicely. And they did this in the first movie as well. The characters dancing around to these 70s songs. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. So like these movies are getting a little bit bizarre, and I mean that in a good way, because this is a mainstream release. I mean, not only is it a mainstream release, this is like the mainstream movie release of this period of the year. Like this is what everyone's going to see. And they just get so wonderfully bizarre with all the characters and the plot. And what these Marvel studio movies have been doing, which would have been unthinkable like 20 or 30 years ago, is taking all this geek culture, really getting into like these convoluted comic book plots and kind of all these bizarre storylines from what used to be just kind of only geeks reading comic books would know about this stuff. And now it's like mainstream. And I know I'm not the first person to realize this. Like I'm probably 15 years behind with this analysis. I think people have all been writing for 15 years about how geek culture has become mainstream culture. But I'm saying it because it struck me anew as I was watching this movie, this kind of little bizarre movie about these guys out in space, all these aliens, and the family alliance, I think, with the family drama with Thanos' family and the sisters Gamora and I forget the other one's name, the blue girl, and all this backstory and plot, and it's just so wonderfully intricate and nerdy and bizarre in a great way. And this is mainstream entertainment now. Like, this is what everyone's seeing. So that's as a longtime geek, I'm very happy to kind of see all this bizarreness go mainstream. It's a wonderful age that we live in, isn't it? Like imagine 30 years ago if you had told people that these would be the kind of movies people were watching. Do I have anything else to say? I think I hit all my main points. So it's a brilliant movie. It flirts with genius in some scenes, but it doesn't quite carry that same quality all throughout. Some of the jokes maybe should have been edited out. Some of the jokes are a little bit embarrassing. Most of it's pretty funny. I give it 8 out of 10 stars.